Und jetzt ein bisschen warten.
Hi everyone. So it's been a while. I am doing another tea stream. Welcome everyone. Today, as you might notice, there are some differences. On the one hand, I'm not just streaming on Twitch. We are live on YouTube as well. And the person who owns the YouTube channel we're live on is joining me for a tea session and a casual chat. I'm here with Gabriele from Nannuoshan, a German tea shop. Gabriele, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sigi, Guydrinkstea, for this invitation. I'm glad to be simultaneously on two different channels, and we will find out how these things work. Please give us a comment in the chat if you can see and hear us well. If technically speaking everything is fine. This is the first time we do this multi-streaming. Let's see what people say. But otherwise, yeah, I'm here. I am at the end of my working week. As you see here, is still light. It is a late night talk, but since I'm in the US, it is still quite bright. It is 5 p.m. right now here. So I'm ready to have, if you want, a late afternoon tea. My 5 p.m. IT, my high tea with Pu'er.
Yeah, I'm staying a bit more true to the idea of it being late at night. It's 11 p.m. here. I haven't had tea yet today, but I'm really looking forward to having some now. Fittingly, both of us are going to have some Pu'er today, because that's always great to talk about. What kind of tea did you bring for this session?
For this session, I have here Bingdao, our Bingdao 2013 Gushu Pu'er. And I was thinking actually, what about steeping a Pu'er in a baby gaiwan that I usually use for a danson? It's something that I never do, but actually today I had a danson during the whole day while I was working, and so at the end I thought, you know what, let's try something different, and I will steep in these. This is kind of 50 milliliters gaiwan. You see how tiny it is.
Yeah.
Actually, the bowl is even larger than the gaiwan actually, so I can put my gaiwan.
Very nice. Very nice indeed.
Oh, I see that also Gabriele from Munich is online. Hi, Gabriele.
Hello. Yeah, we've got a bunch of people here from the T Discord and
Oh, really?
from the Nannuoshan community. Yeah, it should be fun.
Unfortunately, I don't have a view on the Discord chat and so on, so I have to get from you, Sigi, what is happening there. I have a view here on the YouTube chat though.
Yeah, I'll try to keep everyone connected.
Thank you.
All right, so I've got this nice little Dragon Ball here. Let me see if I can show it on the other camera as well.
Yeah.
This is Guydrinkstea, supposedly all tree material, but who knows? I've had it a couple of times. It tastes very, very good, and I'm glad I got it. So
Nice.
this should make for an enjoyable session.
So is that a Sheng?
Yeah, that's also Sheng. I think we're both having Sheng today, right?
Yeah, it looks relatively dark though, isn't it?
That might be in part due to my camera settings, because everything's a bit dark right now.
I see.
It's not like actively green, but it's definitely not like the dark brown like an HT or anything like that. I think it's 2018.
It is a light night session, so it's fine if it's dark, right?
Exactly. All right. In that case,
also, Ward is, if I remember right, Ward, sorry, just greeting a few customer. If I remember right, you are from Belgium, I think, right? So Sigi, do you have already your bowl in the gaiwan, or what are you using? Are you using a
I'm using this pot here.
I don't see it.
I need to show it on the other camera. Yeah, that's gonna take a bit getting used to.
Nice. Yeah.
Sorry, dear audience. This is a Zini pot, 120 milliliters, and since I'm a bit of a clumsy person, I've had to fix it a few times, so there's some nice gold stripes.
That's nice. So who made that work for you?
I did that.
Really?
Yeah.
You
Surprisingly
know,
enough, it's not that difficult.
oh, that's interesting. So when we get, because sometimes it happens that customer break each in teapot, they contact us and they ask from whom we can do, the repairing. We had one person actually that was doing that in Berlin, and we have also a specialized laboratory in Gindejen actually that does it.
Oh
But
wow.
that in Gindejen they are really really expensive, but they are also very professional. Like you can even break an ancient teapot in many pieces and not being able to find some. A nice laboratory that we just discovered last year actually when we were visiting there. I am here at this
But
tiny
yeah, I'd
table.
love to go to Jingdezhen sometime because it seems like a fascinating city with
It is.
such a like rich history.
It is, and actually, I was even I think I mentioned that in some video that when we do the tea tour, I mean, we don't do it right now because of the COVID-19, but actually, we were supposed to. I was supposed to be right now in China actually, and the customers from the subscriber that joined it actually for the tea tour would have joined me in a few days, and we would have gone only to tea plantation region. But I would really consider maybe for next year to do also not only tea gardens but also go to Jindegen, for example, because despite there is no tea production there, it's really a fascinating city, as you say.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Nannuoshan organizes a yearly trip to China for friends and customers that you can participate in if you want to, where they go to China and have a lot of tea-related experiences, sourcing tea. I think even making tea. Didn't you make some?
Yes, yes, we also make tea. We have also actually on the stream on YouTube we have Gabriele that actually was supposed to join us this year to China. We even already booked the flight and then we had to cancel everything because of the coronavirus. Um, but that's correct. We usually try to go in this time of the year because we want to experience both green tea production and oolong production. And since the two are timely shifted, there is only a few days every year where the two overlaps. And yeah, and that would be basically at the end of April, beginning of May.
Makes makes sense. Yeah, I've seen I've seen some of the like reports and blog entries, and
Ah, yeah.
I think you even did a video on
Yes,
the
we
China
did
trip, and it
also. We did a short video.
looks
Yeah.
yeah. I'd I'd love to go someday, but I think I gotta finish university first because otherwise it might be tough to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're drinking Pu'er today. It looks like you're about ready to go. I
Yeah,
just got
almost
done
there.
with my
I'm I'm thinking about how much leaves to use because it's such a small guy one. But I think I will do like that. I will do a shampooer and I will brew it at Danzong style. So I will put let's see, I will put actually almost 5 grams of leaves in this tiny guy one and do very very short steeping. Honestly, it's the first time that I'm doing this. Just had this idea today. I don't think at all that Shangpuer is suitable for Danzong style, Chaozhou style Gongfu um, but this Bing Dao is not really a bitter puer, so it should be actually okay. We'll see.
yeah.
I'm sure.
Also,
Go ahead.
there's like I think that there is a point to be made, like with how Pu'er processing has changed over time towards Pu'er being more drinkable when it's young these days.
Yeah.
That maybe people could start experimenting more with other ways of preparing it. So closer to something like an oolong, or maybe I don't know, that maybe even lower temperatures or stuff like that. There's a ton of different things one could do.
Maybe. Yeah. 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 Sometimes I actually do lower temperature for puer. That's something, yeah, I've done. But this type of super tiny guy one, and on top of that without a pitcher, so just directly pouring in the cup, is the first time that I try this out. And also, is as you say that the production a little bit might change and also adapt to, especially to the Western need, because more and more Western people start getting interested in Pu'er. But also, starting the kettle here, it's where it comes from. Like Bindao is in Linzang, and in Linzang Prefecture, usually, I mean, it's not the rule, but usually you have a little bit of a more spicy taste and less bitter.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what is
Cheers, by the way.
cheers? So I have a little bit of hard time, as usual, of course, to follow to follow the discussion in the chat. But Matthias will write me in a separate chat if there is some question, and I will try to follow up there. Gabriele Zimmerman is writing Bai in Shan Yeshen, White Needle Mountain Leaf Sheng, whatever that is.
Wild. That's wild.
Sheng for
variety.
wild, yes. Yes, Sheng. Right.
Yeah. We've had some interesting discussions about Yesheng on the Discord lately, where like we were talking about how there's different types of Yesheng with the like naturally grown wild varietal, the cultivated wild varietal, and then other stuff that is neither of those two also being called Yesheng for
Yeah.
some reason.
That's a problem, especially also depending on the tea, I would say, because if you are in Pu'er, it is more likely that when you say, in my opinion, what I've heard, that when you say Yesheng, you really refer to naturally growing tree, although also there are people might refer simply to plants that have been planted long ago and then no one have been taking care of them. So in German, I would say verwilderte Pflanzen. How to say that in English?
Like I guess it's kind of implied by just the word wild, or like plants that have been left to
Yeah,
themselves without any further like cultivation, basically.
yeah. Originally they were not wild; they were cultivated, but then over the year they were just left. While on the east coast in China, where anyway the plants have been cultivated, when they use yesheng, they really refer just to it. And we have actually a few examples I can make. I remember once I've been visited a garden. It was actually for longing. They were doing longing more than 30 years ago, and then 30 years ago they've stopped taking care of the plants and they let them grow. So starting from bushes, they develop about 3 meters high. And the guy told me, if you want, I can do a tea for you of these plants. So it would have been, an option. He would have just said, the garden is here, we can use it. We just visited it. I have some pictures, I should post them one day. And I didn't go for it simply because we had already purchased Longines for that year. And on top of that, I would have got the uncertainty of the result. I mean, it's not always that Yesheng comes out good, right? So it was a little bit too risky.
That's very true, but that would have been really interesting to experience, especially because, like, at least from my understanding, most green tea is usually harvested from fairly young plants. So who knows what it might have been like?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And also in some regions, I have at least two examples: white tea in fooding, and also um, traditional black tea from the northern of Fujian. They might refer sometimes to yesheng or to they call it sometimes tsai cha, which means literally translated means vegetable tea. And so tsai is vegetables, and sometimes they use that to refer to bushes that grows on the side of the street, or maybe not exactly on the tea garden but a little bit far off, and therefore people don't really take care of it. And sometimes some farmers, what they do, they just go around, pick up leaves from these tsai cha bushes and then make tea out of it. And since they don't know actually what is the original cultivar, they call everything Zaicha. That sometimes is also a way of referring to a local cultivar for from a specific place, simply, yeah.
Ah. So Zealousy in Twitch chat just said that despite Yesheng not always being good, that a Yesheng 2 he bought ended up tasting like pickle juice, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of been similar to my experience, where Yesheng really needs like some time and some good storage before it really becomes a nice tea. It's often quite like harsh, bordering unpleasant.
Fine. It's just that if I think about Yesheng, yeah, if you tell me just the word Yesheng, the first thing that come up to my mind is a green tea that I had a couple of years back, very very fresh, just out of the garden. They sent us a sample, like actually a big sample to Shanghai, and it was incredibly good. And I wanted to have more information about the tea, and the only thing that the farmer was saying is just Yesheng, like they just didn't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that actually, you guys and all the customers, you always want to have as many information as possible about the
Yes.
tea. So what do you do when you find tea and you have nothing, you know nothing about it? It simply tastes good.
In some way, I think if it's an exception, then that could technically work. Like if, let's say, that was the only tea on your store where you're genuinely like, okay, I've got no idea what this is, but it tastes fantastic and I want you all to try this, then that's probably fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be an option, but also you have to find something to write on the website, right? But I mean, maybe it could be a story. The fact that you don't know nothing about the tea.
Yeah, definitely.
That's an option. You know that sometimes it's not so easy when you are there and you think. I mean, think about even going in a place like Yunnan. You cannot imagine which huge choice you have of tea. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's not only when you go visiting a farmer, but sometimes farmers have also someone from the family that have a shop in a city tea market. So, for
Oh,
example,
yeah.
in Kunming there are many large tea markets. So everyone, most not everyone, but most of the owners of those tea shops actually produce tea back home. And so you visit this tea market and you have literally thousands of different teas. You can source and you can just pick one and then get acquaintance with the farmer and then maybe agree on visiting together with him the factory and so on. And it's that you have this huge choice, but you have to limit what you can buy. It's very, very hard. Yeah. You have to go by
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah.
It's we have a funny inside joke on the T Discord that also kind of makes sense in this context, which we randomly found on some tea websites because their tagline was "Taste, never
Yeah.
lie,"
Yeah.
with the lie instead of lies. That's kind of what made it funny. But yeah, I mean, it's basically right. Like ultimately, you can't really decide before you've actually tried something.
It is. Yeah. It is.
So something I've been meaning to ask you is, since we're having Pu'er right now, and we've already had a bit of a chat about Pu'er, what got you interested in Pu'er initially?
I got me interested in Pu'er. Well, I think that to answer the question, I would say later Pu'er came to me than the other way around. So the way I got interested to Pu'er is when I traveled for the first time to Yunnan, but I didn't travel to Yunnan in search for Pu'er. So, or at least it was not the main reason. So basically, at we are not speaking about the very beginning of Nannuoshan. We are speaking about what happened before that, basically.
Yeah.
And there was a time where I was, as every one of us, right? We go into tea and we start collecting information about tea. We want to gain some more knowledge, and sooner or later, every beginner, realize and read about the fact that the tea plant most probably come from the southwest of China, from the region between Yunnan, Sichuan, Burma, Myanmar, and so on. And so, and actually, I decided to go to Yunnan because I thought if I will do a first tea journey to China, I want to go where everything started.
Ah.
So I didn't went there because there was a Pu'er hype, not really, and it was not with me at that time, the Pu'er hype. I knew Pu'er, of course, but was not the tea that I drank the most, which is probably today the tea that I drink the most. And so it was a very adventurous journey actually, because was I still a student? I wasn't. I wasn't a student anymore, but not much money, let's say. So flying to Yunnan is expensive because you don't have direct flights from Europe, at least at that time. So you have to fly, to the east coast in China, and then so at the end, I decided to go to Yunnan over Thailand. So I flew to Bangkok, then I went to in the north of Thailand to Chiang Mai, and then from there I reached the border with Laos. And from
Yeah.
there, there is a river, the Mekong River. I jumped on a boat that comes only once a week at that time, and I stayed basically on the boat for 9 hours until I reached Yunnan in the middle of the night. So that was my entry in Yunnan. And that's the way I came in touch actually with Pu'er. So I didn't speak, well, I spoke a few words of China, but it was really extremely basic. So I had a piece of paper where I had written, I wanted to show that basically on tea markets, and it was written who I was, and I wanted to do an experience with tea farmers, if they could bring me in touch with the tea farmers, and I could spend some time at the farm. And so eventually that's succeeded, and that was my first true experience with Pu'er, because of course it was not a farm, it was basically a family house, and they were a family of Pu'er people that cultivated tea and made Pu'er, and just they didn't have any way of pressing the tea, so they were just producing matcha. So, by the way, Gabriele, you asked what is matcha. I will get to that video, but here we're speaking again about matcha. They were just doing matcha, and then they were sending matcha and selling to the factory for pressing. And they were keeping some matcha for themselves, and they were also selling matcha. So at their house in the evening, after we were out to work in the tea fields, we had only the opportunity actually to drink extremely bitter matcha, and I would say that in my mind is the most bitter tea I have in my head at all. It was wow. It was maybe I was at that time not so used to bitterness like now, but it was really
Maybe, but
hard.
at the same time, we are talking about freshly harvested Pu'er here, so
Eh?
I imagine it would be quite powerful.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. And
Oh,
what
so
about you? What about you? How did you became a
uh,
lover of poor?
you know, that's kind of a tough question to answer because, realistically speaking, when I initially got into tea, I didn't like Pu'er at all because I got some like loose show Pu'er from some local tea shop that didn't smell good and tasted even worse. That was back in maybe like 2012,
Uh-huh.
2011, sometime around that time, which was also when I was getting into sencha, which I really enjoyed at the time and still do. And uh, yeah, so I tried that. I thought, okay, so that's what Pu'er is, and I thought I probably wasn't going to touch it again for the rest of my life. And how wrong I was. So, fast forward a couple of years, it's 2018 now, and for some reason, I'm not sure what motivated me, but I just got this thought in my head that I should probably give Pu'er another try. And I
Oh.
did. And this time it turned out well because I actually found out about like Shang and Show, and I found out about
Mm-hmm.
storage and about not buying garbage, etc. and yeah, I've been hooked on it ever since. It's I've got more Pu'er at home than I could probably drink in maybe a decade or so, and I've got
Which is a
30.
kind of a classic for poor lovers, right?
Yeah, we are hoarders.
And Heicha, actually. I mean, of course, also because by the gram, with respect to other teas, you can make better deals. So, especially other Heicha, not only poor, you can really buy, 1 kilo brick and cost you by the gram, yeah, 10 cents or so online from München as well.
Oh yes, hi Helena. Uh, but yeah, I think having or like usually having to buy HR in such large quantities can also be a thing that makes people kind of shy away from it, because committing to like a full 357 or 400 gram Bing
Yeah,
uh, is more money upfront, even if the cost per gram is
it
lower
is.
than
Yeah.
that of, let's say, most like yancha.
And that's why you have got this change recently of introducing also smaller Bing chas, like the 200
Mhm.
gram and the 100 grams, that up to just few years back were impossible to be found in China. And actually, that's also the reason why we started breaking cakes ourselves. So just until I would say 2 years ago, we were only selling full Bing chas. And then we realized that people would like to try some samples and also buy larger quantities. And so we introduced it basically a smaller portion and we break the cake for you. But that's definitely a Western thing. No one in China would ever come up of asking of going to a tea shop and asking them to break a cake to buy just a portion of it. And the
At the
prices
same
are
time,
as high as here.
something I have noticed with my like ordering straight from Tmall and stuff is that one thing vendors will often do is they'll send like a 10-gram sample of the tea you bought along with it, because they know that most people are just going to put them straight into storage.
Yeah,
So that way you can also have a sample that you can try right away.
yeah, 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 definitely, yeah.
And one thing I meant to ask with regards to the whole sample thing, would you say that like the amount of Pu'er you've sold on Nannuoshan has increased since you started doing samples?
Definitely, yeah, 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 yeah. No doubt. It has been increasing a lot. Not only, I mean, we can call it sample, but basically what we do is all our pour, we sell also 50 grams packages. And for the most expensive one, we sell also 20 grams. And
Hmm.
anyway, you have the possibility for all teas to buy the 6 gram samples. So that's the way we do that.
Hmm.
And yeah, and well, we sell also full bean chars, but we definitely sell more often pouches of these. Yeah, pouches of puer.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Like,
How is your tea?
it's really nice so far. So one of the things I appreciate about Göttingen in particular, it being like an area that's adjacent to Iwu. I think it's like in the northwest, if I recall
Say
correctly.
the name again.
Göttingen.
Yeah.
Uh, there's something quite special about it to me, because on the one hand you get some things that people would associate with an Iwu tea, where you've got a lot of pleasant flavors, a lot of sweetness, nice texture. It feels good, but then at the same time you've also got like a fairly potent, maybe not potent, but like fairly prominent bitterness that
Yeah.
provides a really nice contrast to all of the EU like stuff that he is giving you.
Yeah, yeah, I see that, yeah. And it depends also very much really how you prepare it. You say you have 120 milliliters teapot, you're using an Ishin, which is smoothing anyway a little bit down the tea. How
Hmm.
much tea did you put in there, more or less, you know?
Uh, I'd say this ball is maybe around 7 grams.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of my usual ratio. So I've been using this pot for the most part lately. I've been doing 7 grams of sheng in it, regardless of whether it's like young or old. There are some where I do like a bit more, if I know the tea and I know it needs a bit more. But and with that, I tend to do somewhat longer steeps. So I feel like we're kind of doing opposite techniques here. You're going for a lot of really quick steeps today, and I'm going for
Yeah.
several steeps.
Well, it is. Look at the guy one. I try to get closer to the camera. I don't know if that works. I mean, you will see it dark, but at least you can see how much there is inside. It's really full of tea. And so for the first time, I am experiencing this Bingdao as very bitter, no matter how short I steep it. And it has also some salty mineral notes to it that are also a little bit new. So I definitely, with this new way of steeping it, I get new notes out of it. I'm not sure that this is the way I like to brew this tea, but nonetheless is interesting for at the very beginning it was even earthy, and I mean it's not too old, it's 7 years old, but it had some earthiness to it. Yeah,
That's really cool.
and it's kind of, you know, this salty feeling that you have when in winter you drink a salty soup, a whole hot,
yeah,
yeah,
this like
that.
briny kind of impression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
powerful.
what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so regarding ratios, something that I've come to believe is that scaling, like scaling your T ratios to your vessel size and scaling your steeping temperature isn't really like a linear thing. So for example, if this were a 60 milliliter pot, I couldn't do 3.5 grams and do the same steep length because
Yeah,
it doesn't quite work like that.
yeah, yeah, that's
And
yeah, I see your point. And um, I think if you would like to search for an analytical explanation of that, you can write a PhD thesis on it. It's definitely I mean, there are some. I definitely agree that you cannot go linear. Um, even if you use just if you want to get a little bit more technical, but even if you use exactly the same shape, so let's pretend you have two guy ones, they are identical. Actually, we have, I don't know if is sold out or not, but we have another guy one that is identical like this one. Even the same kind of porcelain is just like more than double the size. But even if you have exactly the same shape and you do as you say, you just steep the ratio accordingly, and you steep for the same amount of time, you don't get exactly the same taste out of it. But just to mention one thing that is different is the way that the taste from the leaves dissolve into the water, because a major, I know I'm getting technical here, so, but just to mention it, the technical contribution to the speed of diffusion of flavor from the leaves into the water is thermal convection in your vessel. And so natural convection means that simply, since one side is hotter than the other, it start, you know, the water inside start moving. And if the pot is very small, just scientifically, it's too small to create convection cells. So water is not moving at all inside your guy one. But if you have a larger teapot, you can have even more than one convection vessel. So inside the vessel like this, with water, you cannot have really convection. Yeah.
that's super interesting. And like Broto in the Twitch chat just said, the more technical, the better. Because the folks in the Discord have been doing like deep
Really?
dives on all of this technical and scientific stuff. And that convection, the thing you mentioned about thermal convection actually makes a ton of sense, because one thing we found out is that smaller vessels aren't really that great for Pu'er in particular, because for some reason the tea seems to really care about like getting enough heat so everything gets extracted. And kind of, maybe not necessarily like the bigger the vessel the better, but there's definitely a sweet spot for
Yeah.
like pot or guy one size when it comes to Pu'er.
Yeah, that's an aspect, and in fact, actually, there is this European and American trend of using extremely more Asian teapot, that is totally not done in China. In China, you see much larger Asian teapot, not everywhere, right? If you go to Chaozhou, they really like small ones. But usually they have no problem even with the 300, 400 milliliters teapot, while everyone in Europe would say, oh no, that's too large. What they do, they simply don't fill it all with water. You don't have to fill it all, right? And another aspect that I was thinking about is that if you have an Asian teapot, a small and a large one, and they are exactly one double the size than the other, the larger one, you would do double the surface. And also, when you make larger teapot, you have to use thicker walls, otherwise it is too fragile. And so also you have much more thermal inertia, if we want to be technical. I was once a thermal engineer, so I tend to like those topics. And so you have more thermal inertia in your teapot, and when it cools down, it requires much more water to heat it up again. And when it is hot, it stays there longer. So this is another aspect. Another aspect is especially when you really steep at very high temperature, and usually is how much lost heat you lose, especially for longer steeping. This is not applicable to very short steeping, just to radiation, because you lose a lot of heat just to radiation, and the larger the surface, the larger the loss. So that's also another aspect.
Ralph from who's watching via Twitch right now is asking whether the water you're using today, being different from what you've used before, might have an effect on how the tea tastes. If there's like, are you noticing something?
Yeah. Well, it definitely would have. As a matter of fact, I've recently drunk in the past week at least 2-3 times this tea, and exactly with the same water. It is simply a filtered tap water. So with exactly even the same filter, it is a large filter. So just within a few days, you don't the filtering power doesn't change. So that's not the case. But when I will finish with this water, I have a bottle of spring water that I could use, and then maybe would be a difference, which is here, just out of the supermarket, basically. But I seldom actually, but I don't like to buy water for steeping tea, not because it's not better, of course it would taste better. I think it is a little bit of a waste, and honestly I don't have a car, I don't want to carry water all the way around.
Yeah, that's entirely reasonable, and like if the tap water you're using is giving you satisfactory results, then there's no real necessity to buy other water. Unfortunately for me, my tap water has like 22 Deutsche Härte, so I'm kind of forced to use other stuff if I want to taste anything at all.
Yeah. Here is also extremely strong. You cannot even drink out of the tub. I'm not now. No, I think there is a video I will do. I already filmed it, so I never, when I already filmed the video, I never remember if it's already online or not. But I think this one is not. And there I did an experiment actually directly using tap water for a reason that I won't tell you now. You will see in the video coming out soon. And wow, it is like you cannot really drink that water. It tastes like swimming pool water.
So it's like strongly chlorinated.
Yes. And by the way, there is a question that I'm reading here in Matthias' chat. That probably comes from the YouTube chat. Do you ever drink Pu'er? Do you like it? In what situation? So I think what is good if we Sigi, we both answer the question so that they get two perspectives about that. Do you want to say something about it?
I feel like my perspective might be a bit more surprising, so I'll let you go first.
Oh, really? Okay. So, do you ever drink shu? Yes. So, to answer very shortly, yes, I do. Do you like it? I do like it. It doesn't mean that I like all shu pu'er, but there are some that I like a lot. And in what situation? That's a little bit the most complex of the three questions, because wow, it really depends. I could say situation where I don't drink pu'er, for example, early in the morning, very seldom. In the evening, can come relatively often. So in that case, I really like that warming around sensation that especially old shoe pu'er can have. So that have this earthiness that reminds me of beets, I think in English, and I love beets. So I really like this earthy taste that when associated with this warm feeling, especially in winter, actually, I like it a lot. You know. So Sigi, it's your turn.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of difficult because I've sort of gone through phases with Shopur. I started really liking it at first, like when I initially got into Pu'er. Then I stopped drinking it altogether, which has been going on for the longest time. And I still don't really drink it when I'm by myself, but I'm currently like slowly in the middle of starting to change my opinion again after getting, let's say, maybe a slightly better understanding of what actually constitutes like age and maturity in a Pu'er, and how that relates back to the attempt of Shupur to recreate this whole aged sensation. Because
Yeah, yeah. And
I
actually,
think,
even no,
yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
because I think one thing that might be fairly common in the like journey of the poor drinker is, at least over here, when you start out, you are focused almost entirely on like, how does my tea taste good? What's the flavors? And Shu does have some nice flavors, but uh, the impression I ended up getting a while ago was that a lot of it is quite like samey. There's a lot of earthy notes. There's some type of sweetness to it and whatnot.
Yeah, I understand
Uh,
what you say. Yeah.
yeah, and then as time goes on, there are other qualities about the tea that one starts to appreciate. So like texture, mouthfeel, your like reaction to the tea, how it like makes you feel,
The
how
impact on your
you
body, right? For example, in
yeah,
China,
yeah.
many people would drink shupuer rather than shenpuer because they consider shenpuer, especially when it is too young, being too aggressive to your body. And you
Mhm.
have also to, in my opinion, you have to see also at the way that Sheng and Shupuer, the place that they have in history, it's completely different actually. So Shupuer has you can see Schuper is true that it was invented in the 70s, right? But the fermentation process is much older. You have a lot of different Heicha in other regions that have a much older history, and
Yeah.
people back a few decades ago would never drink shampoo young and raw. So they would always let it age. It doesn't matter if you look at people that were drinking that in Hong Kong or were drinking that a bit later in Malaysia, in Taiwan, or even before the Hong Kongese in Tibet and in the other foreigner region just around in China. All of these countries, they were drinking an aged a rough kind of pu'er that was very close to the shoe pu'er feeling that we have today. So then when there was this start of the hype of pu'er, and basically only about the start with the start of the new millennia, there have been people interested in drinking relatively fresh pu'er. So it's a completely new thing. In fact, before there was even not a definition for how to call a fresh shampoo. It's nothing that you can drink actually. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think this is also the reason why today there is this controversy still about where to place a shampoo, because you could
Yeah.
say it is a heicha, but but
But is it
actually
though?
it is not. It has nothing to do with all the other heicha. Then you could say it's not a heicha, but it becomes a heicha after you have aged it for 20, 30 years. And then my question would be, why don't you call heicha a 20, 30 years old white tea? Right?
Yeah.
Or why you don't call heicha a 20, 30 years old green tea?
Mhm.
Green tea has a very a processing that is very similar to shampoo. So it's hard, right? And I have been thinking about what to write or what to say in a video about the difference between Shen Pu'er and Green Pu'er for quite some time now. I have already a script that I started writing, and that's why I just said, at the beginning, write. I use the word writing because I always write down what I'm going to say in the video usually, and I've been working on that, sporadically now and then for a few months already, and I'm not yet there that I feel ready to film it.
There's so much to say about Pu'er, really. And what was the topic we were on previously? I forgot, to be
Well, also
completely honest.
Pu'er. We were speaking about Pu'er
Oh, yeah.
before. There was this question about Pu'er, and before that, I think we were discussing about the effect of different dimension of tea vessels on the taste. Um, but at the end, is also you have so many parameters that it's very very difficult to say which is the best. At the end, it depends which is the best for you. And also, I'm sure that every one of you guys know that I've experienced that feeling that you have been drinking tea for a while and then you are used to steep a certain tea in a certain way and you just stick to it. Like, I mean, we have an example. For example, Sigi, you were saying 120 milliliters of water, iced tea with 7 grams of leaves, no matter which pour. So you get familiar with the steeping method that it meets your taste and you just stick to it. And it is good because it means that you have experienced something in the past and it was a way that brought you there. But at the same time, it prevents you to experiencing something new. And so sometimes I like to take a break. I like if I am at home, I'm not here at home. If I am at my home, I like to drink Pu'er, Shenpuer. I always steep it in my favorite Asian teapot, that is the Duanni that some of you have seen in the videos. And there is no way out. I mean, if I am at home, I never steep a Shenpuer in a Gaiwan because I love my Asian teapot. Yeah, but now I don't have it with me, and so I'm experimenting a bit. And although I wouldn't go for the steeping method in the future necessarily, I am actually discovering different aspects of the same tea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important, like, on the one hand, to figure out what works for, like, me or for you personally, and then it's equally as important to, once you have that established, be willing to branch out and try different things.
Yeah.
So, like, it's kind of step one and step two. Step one is establishing a functional baseline to compare other things against it, to compare other things to. And then once you've got that baseline working, you can play around with basically anything: different
Right.
water, different teas, different vessels, different steeping times, and whatnot.
Definitely, yeah. And I like to experiment. I like also to drink. When I invite people to my place to drink tea, I actually like to, if someone wants to steep the tea, because he will certainly steep it in a different way that I did. That's something that is not very common in Gongfu Cha. If you invite someone, you will be the one preparing it, and usually there is this tendency. I know my tea. I don't want to give it to you because you will prepare it improperly, and then it won't taste good, and you will tell that the tea is bad. Yeah, I don't care much about that, and I like sometimes to let other people steep in the tea and see what comes out of it. And I don't remember right now if, for example, I did that in some video with Brian about Pu'er, and Brian has a very different steeping technique than mine. So
Yeah, most of the time when I drink with Jens and Ralf and the Munich group, it's often not the person who owns the tea who's preparing it.
yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily like a conscious thing in our case, but it's kind of nice to see your own teas being prepared by someone else and to see like how
Yeah, same
they
for
end
me.
up tasting a bit different.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I see, Sigi, that we have the same look.
Yeah, I think this is like the quarantine 2020
Yes,
we've got going on here.
that's the case. Yeah, you can tell actually when the quarantine is over because I will shave. So that's you can use that as a parameter.
Yeah, it's it's been going on for a while, but at least we've we've still found ways to enjoy ourselves despite being stuck at home.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I have to say that personally, I'm enjoying it a lot. Like, uh, I mean, I don't like the situation, and I hope that the war gets out of it as soon as possible. But as concerns to me, I usually have to go every day in the office, and here I am experiencing something new, working from home. It's working fine. I am productive. I don't think that I'm wasting time. That was one of my fears in the past from working from home. I will get distracted, but I set up my office, and I'm focused. I do what I have to do, and since I know that it's not only something that will be over soon, I just gave up all my hobbies and things that I usually do. For example, sport. I say to myself, you know what? I stop. I don't do sport now, and when we go back to normal life, I start off again. And I see everybody that also the neighborhood that they are in front of the TV and they watch videos and do exercises and so. And I'm saying, you know what? It's for once it's nice to just experience something different. Yeah.
Yeah, and like we got to make the best of it, really.
And now I'm curious. Actually, I want to measure how much water am I steeping, because I think that the leaves here take so much room in the guy one.
Hmm. So it's like, is it 50 milliliters when it's empty?
Right.
Oh, so you're
I
probably
would
gonna
say
like,
60 when it's
ah, okay.
empty. So okay, guys, guess how much I took everything out of it. How much water there is in the cup now?
Yeah, let's see some guesses here. It's probably gonna take a few seconds for them to catch up, but
Right.
in the
Yeah,
meantime, we can
it
just
helps you. You can have a look at the
enjoy.
thing here. And then maybe it would be also nice to know from everyone listening what you're actually drinking. I know that you guys have already written it in the chat, but either we speak with each other or we look at the chat is a little bit difficult. So if you can write it in capital letters, everyone can write in capital letters what you're drinking. Until now, I was able to catch only the Yesheng from Linzang that Gabriele is drinking. What everyone else is drinking. What is Jens drinking?
That's a very good question. I kind of have a feeling he might not be drinking anything right now,
So
but
I say that Jan says 35 millimeters, yeah, and I want you to be precise down to the second digit. So like 3, 5, both numbers are not correct. So continue until you get both, and I will start drinking in the meanwhile.
oh, Jens is drinking something. The Nannuoshan, and then I unfortunately don't know that acronym.
What is Q? Me neither. What is QX?
Oh, maybe like Jingshin. Do you have one of
Chingshin. Chingshin 93. I thought I have only in the past a Tieguanin 93. That I know Matthias likes a lot. I don't know if it's that one that Jens is drinking. We will see when he replies. But guys, you have tried with 35 millimeters, 20, 60, 80, 100, 120. I saw a 45 before.
I've got 40 over here on Twitch.
40 is right. It's 40.
Ah, nice. Congratulations in that case to someone who's also called Jan, a very good friend of mine.
Ah, really? And I mean, today we have it's not the tea quiz, it's not the tea game. But by the way, if you guys are online again tomorrow, so Saturday afternoon European time, Saturday morning in our time, we will be both Matthias and I streaming, and we will be speaking tomorrow about the impact of COVID-19 on our tea sourcing in China, major impact. won't disclose any details today. It is the topic for tomorrow. But what might be interesting for you, and that we will do tea games all the way through the live streaming tomorrow. And it means Matthias and I will be drinking tea one after the other. And every time you guess what we are drinking, you win the tea, and along with the tea, a 20 euro voucher.
Oh
So,
wow.
and you know, we will do maybe 1.5 hour, 2 hours streaming. I will be drinking, Matthias will be drinking. Every time you guess right, we change tea. And so, and will be all teas that are available on our. Go there, have a look what there is on the website, and make your guess.
Yeah. Or if you want to
So,
go hard mode, don't look at the website and just
right,
be
yeah.
an absolute
Or
legend.
if you don't want us to run bankrupt tomorrow.
No, it'll be fine, I'm sure. And I'm sure it's going to be a fun stream tomorrow as well.
And you know, I mean, I play guessing tea all the time. When someone else is tipping a tea, I never want to know what, you know. Sometimes I even ask someone else to pick up a tea because I want to guess it. And recently, actually, I got it wrong twice in a row, exactly the
Ooh.
same tea. It was not my tea, but it was incredible because it was a baozhong from Taiwan. That to me, it was really tasting like a tea guanyin.
Mhm.
And I mean, of course, the two teas have a lot in common. They have some of the few tea or oolong tea that are very low oxidation, so very floral and aromatic. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't even not looking at the leaves, right? Because if you look at the leaves in the first TP, you would see that the Tiwanyin is not completely open and the Baozhong is an open leaf. So in that case, I was completely blind, not even looking at the color. And both times I said Tiwanyin, and it was exactly the same Baozhong.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I really like actually. So let's see what people are drinking here. So Matthias is drinking the Tijuana 93. That is a tea that is no more online, and I have even hard time remembering where I sourced it. Oh yes, now I remember where I sourced that. And it's not from the Master Chen. That is the farmer from which we supply all our aged Tijuana today. And it's just yeah was sold out, but Matthias had still some small portion at home apparently. Then
Mhm.
Helena is drinking Rogui. Helena is a Yancha Rogui or is a more modern Rogui from Taiwan. Where is that from? I guess it's a Yancha, but
I'd assume as much, yeah.
what are the Discord watcher
So
drinking?
on Twitch, I'm seeing one person drinking a 2018 Manjuan from Crimson Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
Then Jens was talking about the Qingchen 93 from a different vendor, as it turns out.
Now that you say Manjuan, it reminds me of another tea game, if you want. Yeah, we like to play tea games that I have done with the Colorado Tea Society. So when I'm in Colorado, we meet about once a month and we do a tea gathering. And the topic of that particular tea gathering was only tea from Manjuan. So everyone that had, I mean, it's something very specific, right? Maybe some of you have even ever heard Manjuan, which is actually at least was one of the sometime it is accounted within one of the six famous mountains.
Yeah.
So it is a famous place, but nonetheless nowadays it's not a hype place. It's not Laobanjiang, it's not Bingdao, so it's not EU, so no one knows it. But actually, so everyone brought that had a home brought a tea from Manjuan. We had about six maybe different teas from Manjuan, and the idea was let's try to find out which is the common taste of tea from
Yeah.
Manjuan. Yeah,
Mhm.
we didn't succeed. We didn't succeed. I mean, we tried different, and they were just different teas. Yeah, so it's.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, isn't it? Because like something I've been trying personally, and I imagine a lot of other Pu'er enthusiasts have been trying as
Mhm.
well, is to like make a mental map of flavors linked to certain areas, or maybe not necessarily just flavors, even general properties of tea. But basically every time there's at least a handful of teas that just don't fit into that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. You can. It's very hard to generalize, right? But you can actually, and there is certainly an influence of terroir in Yunnan that you can tell apart. And this is another topic that is another script that is open end probably, that I'm trying to complete about the different type of Pu'er terroir, just to help especially beginners, but I would say not only beginners, maybe to try to make some order in this big mess that is Yunnan. I mean, we have to say Yunnan is a country that I mean, I don't know the numbers now, but I would say in size is comparable with the size of Germany, and the population is, I'm pretty sure, higher. I mean, some of you can Wikipedia now, maybe I cannot compare the two countries and let us know, but my guess is that the size is fairly similar. Maybe Yunnan a bit smaller, I would say, but the population is higher. So is a lot of people. Yeah, Germany has the highest population in Europe as a country, and it's very difficult to make order in that, especially when you drink 6 different tea from a single place, Manjuan, and they all taste different from each other. And on top of that, you add the complexity of Gushu, terrace tea, of aged, not aged. It's a mess, right? So trying to bring a little bit of order, yeah.
Yeah, even like tiny differences in the processing method are already going to have a huge effect on what the tea ends up tasting like. It's there's a lot of stuff. Pu'er is an infinite rabbit hole that one can like plunge themselves down into and never end up on the ground, more or less.
And Matthias made the research. He's writing that the size of Yunnan province is a little larger than Germany. So I was wrong. I was thinking it is a little smaller than Germany. It is a little larger, actually. And what I read before here is actually Helena is really drinking a Yancha Rogui, so usually a fairly strong Yancha. This Rogui is, by the way, there's another thing maybe for we should speak about Pu'er, but since Helena is drinking a Rogui.
We can talk about anything.
And for me, Rogui, if you have the question yourself, how can I distinguish different Yancha from each other? It's a problem, right? Especially the classic ones. Let's say you want to distinguish Shui Jingui from Bantian Yao, very hard. Very hard. Especially also because the roasting is playing such a major role in the tea. But you can start with Rogui. Rogui is the first Yancha that you should be able to recognize blind. And once you have done that, you can move on with the next. Because it has this very characteristic taste, actually. There are similar, though. Most recently, I had a Yancha from a rare cultivar that is called Shiru. Shi means rock, not cliff, like Yan means rock. Which, by the way, is also a naming in China that they use also for other teas produced in Sichuan, but that's a different story. And Ru, I think, is another name for rhyme. Wait, I'm not 100% sure. Let me think a second. No, it must be something different. I don't remember. Anyway, the name of the cultivar is Shiru, Shiru, and is a very rare cultivar, and it had this spicy note of Rogui. So Rogui is not really unique with that spicy note, but it's hard to get close to this taste. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we had Gabriele that switched to a Liu Bao, which for me is a very good tea for late night.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's
I'm
Hmm?
See, I mixed the things around. Actually, Yunnan has 45 million people and Germany 83. I thought Yunnan had a larger population, but that's not the case. And of those 45 million, which is still, as big as Spain, not even maybe larger, and you have like I think 8 million of those, like 10% or no more, 20% are actually in the capital in Kunming.
Oh. Yeah, but like even then, like 43 million people in Yunnan, and a lot of people there are making tea. It's a large country. There's a lot of tea to find
It's
there.
large and is large and is, as we said, is even slightly larger than Germany. And Germany is a large country, so and the transportation in Yunnan is not as good. So for example, if you are in the that takes quite some time, and once you are in Kunming, when you want to go to in the north to places like Dai, so the that direction of I'm thinking about some names. Let me think. To Shangri-La at the border, basically with Tibet and Sichuan, that might be like a whole night in the bus on roads that are not paved all the way through. So it's still, it's not like a 5 hours train or even less nowadays from Berlin to Munich, and you have crossed the country. In 5 hours, you don't go very far.
Yeah.
So there is still a certain level of isolation, if you want, that contributes to diversity. Yeah. So farmers don't very often meet other farmers in different
Ah.
areas. A farmer in Linsan uh, rarely make a trip and go down and go to EU to visit some people there, unless he has a larger factory and he is interested in seeing how other people do things. But that's rather rare, and
Mhm.
usually it's just a local exchange with other farmers. Yeah,
Makes sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, Responding to Trinke Uso in Twitch chat, I assume that's either my friend Marcus or maybe Tim.
yeah.
Uh, I am drinking some Pu'er from Guydrinkstea right now. It's quite nice. I imagine we could have it together at some point.
And
But
I'm not so good at marketing apparently. Matthias is reminding me that since we're speaking about Yunnan, I should mention I should mention actually a live workshop that we are going to do on the 9th of May. And it is called The Taste of Yunnan. And marketing is relative marketing actually, because we don't really do money out of it. So you can buy some samples in our shop. So and we just sell that for the price of the sample. We would send you 6 different samples, all teas from Yunnan. And sorry about that, none of those teas is Pu'er actually. And the reason is that um, let's find out together if there is a common thread in the taste of teas from Yunnan. No matter if they are Pu'er, white tea, black tea, green tea, is there something in the tea that make you recognizing that tea come from Yunnan and not from anywhere else? And this is the purpose of the workshop. So we're going to have 2 white tea, 2 green tea, 2 black tea. For every type of tea, one is from Yunnan and the other one is from the east of China. And we won't concentrate about recognizing that one is a black tea and the other is a white tea. We will check if there is anything in common between the 3 from Yunnan and that separate them from the other. And of course, my personal answer is yes, there is something, and it's something that I have experienced firsthand when I had the opportunity to try some tea. And before even saying it is a Pu'er or it is a white tea, the first thing that came up to my mind is Yunnan taste.
oh,
So let's do this experiment. So if you want to do this experiment together, you can do it, by the way, also with your own teas. If you have, you know, just different teas, same type of tea, but from different places, Yunnan and other places. Otherwise, if you want to join us with exactly the same samples, yeah, you find more information on YouTube. Is already in there, and on our event page. And I think it is 1750 for the 6 different teas. 1750 euros.
so do you happen to know off the top of your head what kind of teas you're gonna have there for
Yes,
people who want to join but maybe won't be able to order the
yes, we have So a classic black tea from Yunnan, a classic Yanhong, and so black tea was introduced in Yunnan relatively recently, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of the 19th century. And we will compare that tea with an even more recent black tea, Jinjunmei, from Tongmuguan, from the east of China. Then we will have white tea. We have Yue Guanbai. So we will have. By the way, also what we tried is to have. So you have the two black teas are both teas made from buds, from
Oh.
bud leaves, right? You have Dianhong. We took a Dianhong made only with buds. Jinjumei is a black tea made only with buds. So that we take one variable away, let's say. The same story for white tea. We have two Ingen, so two silver needle. One we have Yue silver, Yue Guanbai, so moonlight white. I've also thinking about, I am used to think about the name in Chinese and I have to think about the translation. So Yue Guanbai from Yunnan and the Baihao Ingen from Fuding. So two buds, only bud tea, white tea. And then we will have Yunxi as a green tea from Yunnan. And we will compare that with, don't remember.
Matthias just mentioned the nutty Longjing.
With the nutty Longjing. Yes, with the nutty Longjing. So, yeah, that's the teas that we have chosen for you.
Yeah.
And by the way, maybe when you think at Yunnan, you don't think about white and green tea, while it could even be that there are more green teas in Yunnan than Pu'er. You would be surprised, it's just there is no market here, but you would be surprised by the amount of white also, but you would be surprised by the amount of green tea that is produced in Yunnan. You see,
That's really fascinating because, I mean, yeah, when I think Yunnan, I very much think Pu'er for the most part.
it is, yeah. And the reason is that Yunnan people, I mean, except for the past 10 years, but before that, they were never drinking Pu'er. They were just drinking green tea. Pu'er was for the export. So local people would drink green tea, and they have a huge range of varieties of green teas. You go in a tea market, you get crazy on how different shapes you have, and very interesting in taste, very rich and savory. But for some reason there is no market, so people don't, people other shops and also Nannuoshan, we don't really source a lot of green tea from Yunnan because you guys wouldn't really buy it. So if I am there, I buy it for myself because I like it, but there is very little market. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, funnily enough, that would probably also mean that you could get some very, very good green teas from Yunnan for a comparatively low price.
Yeah. Yeah. All teas in Yunnan are relatively cheap, except for those hype pu'er like Laobanjan and so on, depending on which is the current hype. But that's also why, actually, in Yunnan there is not the tendency of selling wholesale tea by one jin. One jin is half a kilo. Because first of all, they are used to sell pu'er, and pu'er is sold in much larger quantity at wholesale. And also because of that, there is this tendency to sell also other types of tea in relatively larger quantities. That doesn't mean that we were not able to buy also very small portion of some specific loose leaf tea, but the tendency is to sell a little bit larger quantities. Yeah, for
Makes
sure.
sense.
So Jan, good night. I see that Jan is leaving. I can understand that. Yeah, it's getting
Yeah.
late. It's getting late there. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and
Thank you,
have a
Jan.
good night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, since we were talking about Nannuoshan a bunch just now about the workshops you're going to be hosting and stuff, how did you actually get to the point of deciding I want to run a tea shop? What
Oh yeah.
what made you decide to do that?
So this is another thing that that run to me rather than the other way around. And I actually, I once a customer asked to do a video about my story, my tea story, and I told him I will do it when we reach 1,000 subscribers. At that time, we had less than 200. Today, we have more than 700, so we are getting there. By the summer, I will do that. And but I can certainly share already a little bit of that story. So I will put it this way: a lot of business trips because I was participating to a lot of conferences around the world. And I was, when I discovered tea for the first time, real tea, I realized that good tea is not so widespread in the Western world. You know, you can take, for example, let's think today about good coffee. You can find good coffee everywhere. Good
Oh yeah.
whiskey, you can find good whiskey. Good wine, you can find bad and good wine. But if you're thinking about good tea and bad tea, the normal people, I mean not us, right? Not the tea freaks, just the normal people, they are not aware that there is tea of better quality. And so, especially at that time, it was quite some time ago. I'm speaking about like 10 years ago. It was I wanted to spread the word of tea. And so, what I did in combination with my business trip, I was taking with me tea and teaware, and in advance, I was contacting people to organize workshops and seminars. So they were everything, you know, no business, yeah, you know, no money, nothing. I was paying. Sometimes I was paying, like I remember once in Sweden, I gave 100 euros to a cafe just to have a room for us. And in that room, I organized a workshop with 30 persons, just giving, I had my conferences on Friday, and so I stayed over the weekend. And on Saturday, I was just um, giving flyers in Stockholm around in the afternoon, and the next day 30 people came. And then we were doing Gongfu Cha, and I was explaining what is Gongfu Cha and so on. And this has been done, you know, in many countries. It's been done in Sweden, in France, in Italy. And at a certain point, I realized that by going to China, forth and back, it would be much better if I have a small business because I can buy larger quantity cheaper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought let's open an online shop, and then by chance, I will tell you that in the tea history of me video. But for now, let's take it as granted that by chance it happened that I got the possibility of opening a tea house in Berlin,
Hmm.
something that I really didn't had in mind, but it just rushed to me, and I pretty much decided to go for it. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm not sure it was a good decision, but it happened, and yeah, and here I am. Yeah.
I'm sure it was a worthwhile experience, though.
Oh yes, I learned a lot. Yeah, but you
Yeah.
know, running when you have a tea house in the very center of Berlin, despite the fact that Berlin is cheap, is still the capital, and also the prices of the rents for businesses is completely different than houses that can be really really high downtown. And and you know I mean a tea lover. I don't like to sell mainstream tea. So for me, it was a no-go to have blends, for example, like English breakfast
Hmm.
or Earl Grey, that are those type of tea with whom even good quality tea shop make their money actually.
Yeah.
So I wanted only to offer tea that I was drinking myself, and you can imagine that, as we said before, there are not so many tea freaks as us, and so it's just a
Yeah.
small group of people that you are addressing, and on top of that it's a lot of money to run such a shop, and I had just to sponsor it with my own savings basically.
Hmm.
And so yeah, and just to say it in a sentence, when you have a hobby that costs you every month more than your income, it's I mean, of course, you have an income also
Yeah.
from that, right? But it's not something sure. If you
Yeah.
have, for example, COVID-19 2 years ago, and I have to close my tea house, I still have to pay my rent, I have to pay my employees, and those
Hmm.
costs are higher than what I earn. So it's quite a responsibility, and I didn't want to find compromises on quality just for the sake of surviving. Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
I kind of feel like that's the conflict a lot of like enthusiasts have to go through if they want to consider turning their passion into a form of labor.
Yeah.
Because, of course, there's always certain sacrifices to be made, so to speak, in terms of actually making it viable.
Yes, huge. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you don't want to make compromises, then
Yeah.
things can get a bit more difficult.
Right, and I can tell you, I mean, I know, of course, other person that are running tea businesses, tea houses, and they tell it very clear to me, even if they are, they have tea of the same quality as Nannuoshan, they say 90% of our income is done with Earl Grey, English breakfast, other Indian tea, and herbal tea, fruits tea, and these kind of things. Yeah. And I see a question here from a little lemon test. Sorry to split that name. When you started out giving workshop Gonfu style abroad, did you bring lots of teaware for yourself and guests in your suitcase? Yes, I did. So the advantage of being on a business trip is that the company is paying for the flight, and it means you are not flying EasyJet or Spirits or other cheap companies, but you find normal flight companies, and you can take a suitcase with you, even if it is just for a day or just for the weekend. So I was always taking with me a 20-kilo suitcase, but I have just a couple of clothes for me, and all the bag was filled, literally filled with different teas, teawares and cup. Luckily enough, Gonfu doesn't take a lot of room.
Yeah.
But of course, it requires, I tell you, it requires quite a lot of organization, and is a little bit stressful. I remember it was a little bit stressful, but it's just a lot of fun. And sometimes you can get helps. For example, in France, while I was searching opportunities to give workshops in Paris, I came to know tea bloggers from France.
Oh.
And one is called Tevangelist, and so Te with an H, French-wise, and then Evangelist. And she is very popular in France with her tea blog, and she was also invited by large tea companies in France. You know that companies has a long tradition with large tea companies, Dammam Tea, Mariage Frères, and so on. So she was invited even by one of them because they wanted basically her as a way of sponsorship, so speaking about their tea. So she answered to me, and we became friends. Also with Alan, is another tea blogger from France, and they helped me organizing those workshops. So they were, spreading the words in their community. I could use also their places sometime, and I could use their teaware, their tea, and this way we were able to organize in those workshops. Yeah. Was a lot of fun. I missed that in a way, and now that this is a disadvantage of not having a tea house, I cannot really give workshops, and I really like that. So that's when it came the idea of doing these live workshops online. It's not 100% like real, but it gets close to it, right?
Yeah, it's like it works fine enough, and like honestly, in my opinion, I think it's a great idea because on the one hand, you get the comfort of your own home, your familiar teaware and stuff, and on the other hand, you get that shared experience with other people and learning about stuff.
Definitely. And what we do also is sometimes when I travel and I know I go in places where I have customers that I remember, then I ask the customers if they want to organize an event. So in this precise way, I'm also trying to organize actually an event in Berlin. Next time I will be able to fly over. Of course, I have friends in Berlin, but we have so many customers in Berlin that it would be nice to find a venue large enough to have everyone without having to spend a lot of money. And I have one customer that is helping me in finding a venue for that. Yeah. So that's it's a small community, and we try to help each other. And I think one of the reasons why I love tea is because it's a social thing, so I really like to share. And this is the aspect I miss the most of the tea house. Yeah, when I came over to the US, I had basically to close the tea house. You can imagine it is quite hard to run a tea house in Berlin while you're living in Switzerland with a full-time job, and when you move to a city, yeah. But I have to say I'm very happy with that because I can spend more time for the online shop. And honestly, doing both things at the same time was simply too much for, yeah, for one person. And since now also Matthias joined the group, um, it's I have less work to do because I don't have the tea house. I have Matthias that takes over a lot of my previous work, so we are able, for example, to having a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and I mean, especially considering that like both you and Matthias also have day jobs that you work at.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I said I just jumped off a call from work, and I have to actually to close the call 15 minutes before it was to an end. Um, and yeah, we both have other jobs. We don't just make clear we don't live out of Nannuoshan at all. Actually, it's Nannuoshan that live out of us, and yeah, that makes everything a little bit more difficult. That's why also if you look at always when we are streaming, it is during the week, late in the evening when office time are over, or during the weekends. Yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of that day job, what do you do for work?
What I do for
You
it's
mentioned you used
yeah.
to be a thermal engineer,
Yeah,
but
that
is that
was the start. That was the start. So I um, actually I was a thermal engineer at the very beginning, but I've always been working in the space industry. I wanted to be when I was very young. I wanted to become an astronomer.
oh.
And then very close before going to university, I realized that it's very hard to find a job as an astronomer. I will end up being a teacher or maybe
Mhm.
working in a very remote place in an observatory. At that time, there was no remote controlling of telescopes. And so I gave up that idea and I studied aerospace engineering just to have my head in space, basically. And this is what I'm still doing today. So I'm working for a Swiss company that and we produce basically structures for rockets and satellites, and that's
So,
what I'm doing. Yeah.
so what you're saying is basically that you have a very good excuse to use the term "it's not rocket science."
Right. Yeah.
Anything that isn't literal rocket
Yeah.
science.
I can tell if it's not rocket science, definitely, because I do rocket science the whole day long. Actually, yeah, that's
That's
it.
very
And it's also for me it's a nice change. I mean, space engineering is very different than drinking tea. And by the way, I don't know you, but this is another great advantage of working from home. I'm drinking so much more tea now than when I am in the office. And in the office, I still have my whole set. I have my kombucha set, exactly the same kettle on the table, and there is a water cooler and water heater dispenser just next door. And nonetheless, because of thousand meetings and so, there are days where I don't have time to drink tea in the office. While here, I drink tons of tea. Cheers.
cheers. Yeah, for me, it's mostly been like
Matthias.
um, with everyone staying inside, we've been having a lot of like joint tea sessions and talks on the tea Discord. So uh, by that virtue, my tea consumption has already also increased lately.
Yeah.
Like the worst part is there's often kind of like two shifts going on with like the Europeans being online and then the Americans being online late in the night.
Yeah, don't tell
And
me.
I am fortunate or unfortunate enough to
Yeah.
often also be part of those late night sessions, and then I end up drinking Pu'er at like 3 in the morning, which is not a good idea. I wouldn't recommend it, but
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, yesterday evening I was drinking a lot of tea. Yesterday was a yancha day, so I drank a lot of yancha during the day, and then after dinner I say, okay, I want to try another one because I like to taste different similar teas in the same days for comparison. And they would say, yeah, it's not a problem because anyway, yancha is roasted, so you have less caffeine in it, and so. But as a matter of fact, I woke up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and then I couldn't continue really sleeping. I don't know if it is because of that, because usually I don't have really an issue. But yeah, that was the situation yesterday night.
It happens, yeah.
It happens, yeah.
Lemon Test is asking, would you ever give up space engineering to go full time into tea?
Never. No, it's and also the other way around. Yes, I am a full-time engineer, and maybe in the future I might consider going to like 80%. Why not engineering? But I could never leave my engineering part. That's what I've done all my life, in the sense that when I was 12, really, when I was 12, I decided to study astronomy at university. I changed my mind when I was 18, just shortly before going to university. And I've been working all my life in space, and it's a portion of me that I cannot leave. But at this point, I also cannot do only that because maybe I like, in one way, I like a lot multitasking, not necessarily two things at exactly the same time, but when you have 8, 9 hours day in the office, if in the evening I would have a second engineering job, would be very hard. But when you switch completely and you do tea, I mean, at least I find completely new energy. And sometimes, I wake up at 4 a.m., I work 3 hours tea, then I go in the office, 8 hours in the office, and then in the evening I do another 2, 3 hours of tea. And it's fine, I can do that. And people that keep on saying to me, you will get a burnout, I tell them, I opened NannuoShan in 2014. Right? We are in 2020.
I mean, I think in that sense, maybe, I guess it also kind of goes into the idea of like what actually is work, but it seems quite clear that to you, running NannuoShan isn't the same as doing normal work, and that you're
No, not really.
actually
No.
having fun with it.
You
Would you
have
say that?
fun with it. Is a lot of commitment. So I'm sure Matthias can confirm when Matthias have a whole day. Matthias is a lawyer, is a different job, but I mean, it's also quite time demanding. And when you come back in the evening at home, like at 7 p.m., and you have woken up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and after dinner, you have to sit down and process 10 orders, and we write personal letter to each of you, as you know, it's a lot of work, but in a way, you have to I have to decouple um, doing a lot of work with not having fun. That's two different things, right? You can be very tired of doing something, and nonetheless having fun doing it. And that's the way it is for me. I'm certainly also have a lot of energy, and people keep on saying that. I'm sure that not everyone is up to spend so much time and energy for having two jobs at the same time. But for me, it's working fine. And as you say, it's not a real job, also because I mean, honestly, NannuoShan doesn't really bring a lot of money. Actually, doesn't bring money at all. It's just a hobby. We do it for fun, and our reward is actually, for example, because of NannuoShan, I can travel to China every year, and I have an exclusive to explore and find tea. It would be very hard to do the same experience, because how I convince a farmer to spend time with me if I'm just a private person?
Yeah.
But if I have a tea shop and he has an interest in me, then I have a reason for making new connection. And
It's an easy way to get some guanxi.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And in the same way is also very rewarding when you see that you spread the word of tea. So especially also now with the YouTube channel, or before with the tea house, you have people that just pass by the tea house, aesthetically are attracted to it. They enter and they discover a new word, the word of Gongfu tea. Or you can have someone, just searching for tea on YouTube, and then they discover our channel and they realize the tea is different than what they thought before. Or you can have people like Sigi that is already very much into tea and is searching specific information, and then anyway it ends up to our channel, and we like to establish a connection with the customers. So as some of the people that I see also now online, like Jan, like Ward, they have just recently become our customer, but I know them by name, and I wrote them letters. It could have been Matthias knowing letter. I'm not saying that I remember the name of each of you. I think we are now at more than 800 customers, but we know most of you actually, and these, when you write back to us, that's an important aspect, is when we start also remembering asking, which tea do you suggest? Like, for example, before having my own business, I would never go to a businessman and asking me, which tea do you suggest me to buy from your shop? Because I would have the impression he would tell me what he wants to sell and not what. But now, being on the other side, I have a completely new perspective. If you come to me, you send me an email and you tell me, which is your favorite tea on your shop, I want to buy it, I will tell you which is my favorite tea. I don't have any other reason. And I like actually people, searching that level of consultancy, if you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
especially in
think,
Europe, it's hard to find.
I mean, I think that's like, I can definitely agree that that's a like major source of joy and motivation from uh, doing what you do, because it's, even if it's technically work, you get to have like a genuine connection with the people you're engaging with in the context of your work. So yeah, like writing these letters, talking to
Yeah,
people, and that in a way, regardless of like the monetary exchange, is a lot of what makes it satisfying,
definitely,
probably.
definitely. Yeah. And for me, really, also really the connection with the customer is one of the most important aspects. Now we have just Fausto that have just joined. He's from Turin in Italy, and we don't know personally each other. It just happened that a friend of him, Giovanni, and they are in the same Gonfucha group in Turin. He contacted me some time ago on Instagram. So I also
Mhm.
never met Giovanni, but for example, Giovanni wrote me just today an email because he saw our last video about the Yencha geography, and he had some article to suggest to me for reading. So
Oh,
and he's actually just a customer, right? So it's you establish this kind of friendship, even eventually with people that you don't really know, and you are happy when people react. Like now, Matthias just wrote me. Fausto is also back online, and of course, Matthias knows who is Fausto, and I know who is Fausto. Matthias never spoke to
yeah.
Fausto, but since I spoke with Matthias about Fausto, there is this
Yeah.
all this connection about, and
Like it's really kind of the same reason why I vastly prefer Discord as a platform compared to like Facebook or Instagram. Because if there are people I want to talk to directly and I want to hear like opinions from, then I can go on
yeah,
Discord and I can talk to them. Whereas it might be a bit more difficult, or like they might be a bit harder to reach on Facebook or on Instagram because
yeah.
people don't use that as much to directly talk to each other.
Definitely, definitely. And it's also hard to find, I want to say one more thing about that. It's also very hard to find, um, how to say, Händler,
Vendor?
vendor, vendor friendly platform online.
That's
Um,
true, yeah.
yeah, you have the tendency that when I'm joining a platform, it can be a Facebook group, it can be a forum online. There is always a certain level of aggression, like being aggressive towards the vendor, like, oh shit, he's coming in now and he wants to sell us something, he wants to do marketing. Every time you say something, it's always because you want to sell something, yeah. And
Mhm.
there is not the recognition. And I said, I'm not really a businessman, right? I mean, I take my money from a company and I work as an employee in an office like most of you. And when people see me as a vendor through Nannuoshan, it's really annoying because it's not that, it's you want to
Yeah.
share something, yeah, and there is always this label that they put on you, marketing. You want to sell, is not selling the truth, is not giving, and it's very hard, and that's one of the reasons why I stopped participating in a lot of these forums and so,
Mhm.
because because it just pissed me off.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed that there's um especially in the, let's say, older platforms like the tea forums you were talking about, there's always this kind of air of suspicion, which I guess isn't entirely unfounded because obviously it would
Yeah,
allow people to do. But in my opinion, a much better way to go about it is like people are going to be excited about new products from the vendors they like, and they're going to want to
yeah.
hear about it. So why not allow the vendors to talk about them on your platform while also
Right, yeah.
benefiting from the like knowledge and experience they
Because this
bring?
is also a good point that you bring, actually. Everyone is against the vendors, but would you be into tea without the vendors? How do you get your tea from? Yeah, nowadays you can order from China, of course, that's not a problem, but even in China they are vendors. It's exactly the
Yeah.
same story. So it's there is this, I say, this anger against people that do tea business, although actually every of us, because I am a customer as a vendor, every of us have that passion because we came in contact with some vendors. When I started, going into tea, I was starting searching for better and better teas. I would have
Mhm.
no chance um, to get to improve my knowledge and my interest in tea without the vendors that I met on my way. And I have to thank one tea house, actually, in particular, for that gave me the opportunity to really understand what is tea and gave me the stimulus and, if you want, yeah, the push to travel to China myself, basically. Yeah. So I have to say, for me, if you tell me why I fell in love with tea, since this was a question before, one of the reasons I should definitely mention is because of the vendors. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's kind of, it's more about it really depends on like the person themselves. Of course, some people are going to react badly to like marketing and that kind of stuff, and that's where some anger can come from. But like, realistically speaking, for instance, like the discussions we had today, like you've told people a lot of stuff that's really interesting to know um about the thermal capacity of heat of teapots, about various things you've experienced in China that most of us just sitting here and having tea would never have had access to if it hadn't been for the opportunity of getting to directly talk to you.
Yeah, and I have to say, in the same way, I would actually like to have that interaction, like in the forums, in the chat, and so on, because although, of course, I have quite some experience because I've been traveling the past 10 years every year to China, and I know hundreds of farmers and so on, but nonetheless, the world of tea, we said just before, if you think about the size of Yunnan, is so complex
Mhm.
that many of you have in specific field more knowledge than I, right? Like a Sigi might come up with the name of a place in Yunnan where he has a Pu'er from that maybe I never heard or I have already forgotten, and so it's this level of exchange that, if you want, I miss a little bit, because I could participate as a private person on a forum, but it's not fair. And in some forums, and in most of them, it's actually forbidden. If you have a business, you cannot participate as a private person, because your
Yeah.
experience, my experience with tea is 90% of my tea is with the tea that I bought during my tea journey for Nannuoshan.
Hmm.
Because I mean, of course, I also buy from others, but as I was actually mentioning to Fabio, that, by the way, parenthesis, Fabio joined Discord just this morning. So you see, we have connection between Discord and YouTube. That's good. So when you travel to China yourself, and every year you have the opportunities of meeting tons of really very good tea shops, farmers, direct sourcing, and so on. Why should I really order from another shop in the US or in Europe? I do it from time to
Yeah.
time, maybe because my girlfriend does, or because I do just out of curiosity and so. But as I was saying to Giovanni and Fausto some weeks ago, I have very little experience of my competitors, if you want,
Hmm.
because first of all, we are not very much interested in doing competitors-oriented marketing and so on. Second, even if we would be interested in that, we don't have the time for it. So you know much better than I what is out there in the in the European market, on the US market. That would be also interesting for me for sure. But I stopped participating in all of that, and it is a pity for me because it's also is a portion of the T word that I miss. Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, uh, if in my opinion, we really have a place there where people like are extremely interested
Yeah.
in learning about stuff, where vendors aren't like stigmatized,
Yeah.
and where people really just want to learn and hear experiences and exchange like their knowledge and stuff. It's
I
really a great.
I should definitely do that. And in fact, now I'm reading also in the YouTube chat there is Yozi. Yozi, by the way, means pomelo, I think. Yozi. Maybe Yozi can tell us something about his name. I think Yozi means pomelo, the fruit. And he's writing that actually Discord is quite how to say, friendly.
Friendly, welcoming.
Friendly. I mean, I live in the US and still German words pop to my mind all the time. Although I'm not German, it's a big mess here. So Yod is writing, Gabriele, please put an end to the discussion of silver teapots and heat retention. We really need a thermal engineer.
Oh, okay, so Yoda seems to be a person living or traveling far from home, according to my mouse over dictionary.
Yodzi, but he wrote another. I mean, Yodzi can be written in many different ways. He wrote in the. Well, I cannot now do my search myself. Uh, it means wandering person, far from home. Okay. I mean, the word yo certainly, maybe with a different character, is also into the word pomelo. But yo can mean many things, right? Yo means also possession.
Yeah, there's also the what's it called? Like, isn't it also fried something? Because there's like yo tiao and yo di.
Yotia, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know really a lot of Chinese. But I mean, yo. I mean, the most common use for yo, I'm 100% sure, is the verb for possession. You could say the verb have in English, although Chinese don't have the verb yet. But if you say wo myself, wo yo something, it means I have, I possess something.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's certainly the most common use. But I said I don't know about the accent and so on. Anyway, that's a different topic. So CJ, I don't know about you, but last time I was in the toilet was quite some time ago, and I've been drinking here a lot of tea.
Yeah, we have indeed been drinking for quite a while now. We're getting
Right.
2 hours.
Yes, and Matthias is also writing. You have to go to bed soon, and I can understand that. And tomorrow I have still to prepare the workshop a little bit for tomorrow.
All right. Yeah, I probably shouldn't keep you for too long then. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I just watched now at the time, and I didn't realize that we have been speaking for 2 hours actually. But
Yeah, me neither.
yeah,
5 minutes ago, and then I was like, a minute and 45, an hour and
wow,
45 already. Jesus.
that's
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot.
But
So, well, I think we can basically. What do you think? We can bring it to an end, and if you guys like this level of interaction and so, we can have it other times. So we can find maybe a way also to take a little bit more attention to your question. But sometime we have Matthias here that work for us and pop us which question you say, so that helps. And yeah, I don't know. I give the word to you, Sigi, and yeah, for a
yeah,
conclusion.
let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing, on the one hand, more streams with Gabriele in particular, or maybe even Matthias, or both of them at once, even if we want to be ambitious. Uh,
We can
and
try.
let me know if you want to see more like group streams in general. I mean, I have a bit of time now, so I could set these up every once in a while.
Yeah,
And uh, in my personal opinion, it's been a lot of fun today. I enjoyed myself. I
I
hope chat
agree. Yeah.
enjoyed themselves too. We had some good tea. We had some great talks, and
Without any preparation, like we didn't know what to talk about basically, but apparently we got a lot of ideas. But at this point, I mean, actually, the main reason why I have to stop the video is that if I don't rush to the restroom, I cannot drink anyway any more tea.
okay, I'm gonna decant this last steep, and then I was asked to say a bit about the tea.
Okay. Well, you know what? While you say something about the tea, I run to the restroom.
Okay, that's good. So about this tea, to be completely honest, it's basically steeped through at this point. This final steep has maybe a slight hint of the flavor that used to be there. I mentioned a few things earlier in the stream where Guydrinkstea is of particular interest to me because it combines the pleasantness, the like sweet roundness, the comfort of a typical Evu profile with a bitterness and a certain complexity that the lighter Ewu teas can often be missing. So on the one hand, you get some really cool, fruity, sweet flavors. It's a highly aromatic tea. And on the other side, you get that bitterness to really make it interesting. There's some minerality in there as well, of course. It more or less has the hallmark of a tea that stays interesting across the whole session, which, to be completely honest, not every tea does. Yeah, Zams, that one was from Jay, the Guydrinkstea Dragon Balls. And even on this extremely late steep, like, honestly, the stream is making it look more colorful than it really is. I'm still getting that aromatic intensity. Definitely not as strongly as in the earlier steeps, of course, but I'm still getting that, you know, that feeling where it kind of seems like you can smell the tea while it's inside of your mouth. That's still what I'm getting, and that's one of the big draws towards this particular tea for me. It's something I've personally come to associate with like a good quality, ready to drink younger sheng. Not all of them are gonna have it, of course, but
I
this
am
one
back.
certainly does. Welcome back, Gabriele.
Thank
Some
you.
others I have also do. Yes, Jens, I think we did try this one together once. Maybe we could try it again at some point. But yeah, I don't remember what you and Ralph thought of it when we did have it. But it's a tea I've been enjoying for a fairly long time now. Oh yeah. How about we, like, I just got done with my tea recap for this session. How about you recap the tea you had, or like maybe the tea experience rather, since that's kind of more what you were going for this time.
Yeah, it's I said it was really something different. So what I liked of it is that it is a tea that I know very well. There's a long story because this tea actually was bought privately a few years ago. I was drinking it for a year. I really enjoyed it drinking during that year. So the next year when I went back to China, I found a way of sourcing it again and offering also on the Nannuoshan shop. But I never steeped it in this way as I did today. And it's fascinating that it tastes fairly different. Like I would never guess it is actually the Bingdao 2013 because I usually don't experience this tea as being bitter, as being mineral, yes, but not earthy, and it has some earthiness at the beginning. So it gave me a completely different feeling, very strong indeed. As you see, yeah, it's a lot of leaves, and you see also I have been steeping it for a very long time, and it has still a lot of power. So yeah, it was an interesting experiment. I like to do tea experiments.
Would you say it would be worth preparing this tea in this particular way again?
I would say for me is enough. Like I've experienced it, I've experienced something new. I would do it only maybe on a very hot summer day when I want that strength feeling. Then I would brew Bingdao this way because it brings me a little bit that chachi that is usually more found in tea from the southern of Yunnan. So yeah, it's a way basically to transform the tea according to your mood and need, right?
So maybe if you like, if that's all you have on hand, Pu'er wise, and you want something closer to like a Bulang type tea rather
right,
than a
yes,
Linsang type
right.
tea,
So
you might do it this.
the chachi of Bingdao is more a deep one. Yeah, it's more subtle and deep and large, while the chachi from Bulang is more, upfront. You drink and it's like, but it's very much here. And these maybe a Chinese would say is a way of bringing Bingdao from here to the mouth, so you have more strength in the mouth. Yeah. Mm.
That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah. It does sound like a cool experience though.
It is.
If I ever end up trying that one, I'll see if I can maybe reserve a part of it to also try doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we are just about ready to wrap it up today. We've been going for almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm sure your tea still has some power left in it. Mine is entirely dead by this point.
Yeah, I think so. But I probably will go for dinner now, and then after dinner we'll do another tea. And with that tea, I will choose a tea that inspire me for preparing tomorrow's live streaming. It's like I
Sounds
always,
like
want to associate the tea together with the activity I'm going to do. So now it was good to have some strength, during a live session. But when you want to prepare a live session, you want a different attitude, maybe. Yeah.
absolutely. So thank you once again for joining me. This was a lot of
Thank
fun.
you, Sigi.
Um, and to those of you watching, if you're around, don't forget tomorrow, 3 p.m. German time. That's 9 a.m. East Coast, USA, I think.
Correct.
There's going to be a live workshop from Nannuoshan about sourcing tea
Yeah.
in times of the pandemic. So if that's something you'd be interested in, don't forget to head over to their YouTube channel, which you can find under Nannuoshan. And
we have a lot of tea games tomorrow for you, so you can win tea and you can win voucher. So you want to come in, guess the tea, and bring a tea back home.
Yeah. And one particular advantage for those of you joining from the US, Nannuoshan has impressively cheap shipping to the US compared to a lot of other vendors.
That's true. Yeah, it might not be true, as you will find out tomorrow during the COVID-19 time, as some customer had already experienced. I will tell you more about that tomorrow. But we have ways to send you half a kilo of half a kilo parcel where you can put a lot of tea in it for just $5.50. Of course, we take over some of the shipment cost in that, but still, I think it is very fair. It is actually the same price that we offer to send tea to Italy. So
So, yeah, I think this concludes our stream. Like I said, if you've got time and you're interested, don't forget to tune in tomorrow. I'll, of course, try to make it as well. And maybe we'll all see each other there.
Right, yeah. Thank you very much again, Sigi, and I'll see you either tomorrow on the next live streaming together.
Yep.
And bye, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.